Good morning. Kevin Martin here, your UT admissions guy, joining you today from my hometown of Dallas, Texas. In this video, I provide an example of a real student application, and I provide some commentary to introduce how students build their essays and resume and what might go through reviewers' heads whenever they're reviewing and scoring a student's application. I hope you enjoy. In this lecture, I'll review two different essays from a transfer applicant, McGill. Essay A is that personal statement where a student must discuss where they're coming from, where they're at, and why they want to transfer and attend UT. And then Essay E discusses a topic of importance, issue of importance. And this is a particularly interesting file for anyone, regardless of whether you're first-time freshman or transfer, because the first draft that this student sent me was quite long. You can see it's almost 5 pages long. And what they thought was their first draft for Essay A actually turned out to be two pretty fully formed drafts for both Essay A and E. So she thought that the beginning was Essay A, where she talks about her start as a swimming, her beginning of her swimming career, how swimming was quite important to her. She had dreams or aspirations of being an Olympic level swimmer. Became heavily involved in swimming at an early age, competing at quite a high level, before suffering a pretty catastrophic and eventually career-ending injury. Talks about the rehabilitation, diagnosis, the surgical processes to help her recover, and kind of the difficulties of adjusting back to life without swimming and how it was so essential to her identity, coping with failure. So we have a lot of great information, good content here. It eventually helped inform her decision to practice medicine and to be a doctor because she had so much exposure to the different medical fields. She felt that her calling was in medicine. So this would be an appropriate Essay A, considering that it does discuss her future goals and aspirations. But what really is good here is that by writing this one long draft, we already have integrated her content very well. So that way, her SAE issue of importance is naturally going to coincide and complement her SAA. So what eventually becomes her SAA essentially starts here when she talks about her decision to attend the University of North Texas, how it was relatively ill-informed. She wanted to be far, away from home to be independent, but close enough to visit on the weekends. She didn't quite find UNT to be the place she was looking for. She didn't realize how important a sense of community and school spirit is. And academically, she also wasn't being challenged, feeling like a big fish in a small pond. It's a place with quite a low ceiling for her growth. She realized she's not being challenged, and then she has to navigate this dilemma of what to do next. And so this these paragraphs become the foundation for what eventually becomes her SAA drafts. She has a lot of really good content here about visiting UT, being filled with a sense of wonder, seeing so many excited people on campus, identifies a few professors she wants to work with, which is always a great technique, even a specific discipline within anthropology and linguistics that she wants to study, combines or transitions into her interest in languages with experiences abroad, but also being able to speak a few different languages herself, fluent in Spanish, and she also takes French. And so again, we have two, what she thinks are one essay, but it's really two pretty coherent drafts. But we'll go ahead and go work on Essay A for what I call the structural edits. And so these are kind of the big picture edits before we start getting line by line. And so I'm going to turn on the all markup feature so you can see what we're removing. So in this structural edit phase, we're not worried about word choice or the specifics, but we're looking at removing entire sentences and paragraphs or rearranging things. So you can see we're starting this culling process, even removing one paragraph entirely. That doesn't really add much or push the narrative. Removing another sentence here. We'll eventually rewrite some of this paragraph in later drafts. But this kind of early phase, we're removing already about 150 to 200 words, which will help make the next steps a little bit easier. So then whenever we get to the line edits, you'll see that we're doing a lot more work on getting into the nuts and bolts of the essay itself. So I'll turn off the track changes just so you can see how much shorter this essay is. And so what used to be a paragraph almost twice this length has now been condensed into one very concise paragraph that immediately identifies reasons for her wanting to transfer. Again, it's the same overall structure, but just a little more smooth. So I'll turn on the markup feature so that way we can get right down to it. So Immediately, we start with more economical writing. My decision to enroll at the University of North Texas was ill-informed. That's essentially what that used to say. And by removing almost an entire paragraph, we've condensed all of these strike-throughs into some nice sentences about why she wants to move. I viewed university education as something purely academic. I never considered myself as particularly school-spirited. I didn't feel the need to be connected to any larger community. And so what was taking sometimes 2 and 3 sentences to say, we were able to condense down into one simple sentence or a compound. I chose UNT by process of elimination. I didn't feel like I was being challenged. So again, it's saying the same things, but just a lot more economically, a lot more efficiently. By using clear language, it makes the reviewer a lot easier. And you can also pack more things into a smaller space. And that's ultimately the goal of college admissions, is doing the most with limited resources. Resources in this case being your words and ideas. So that original paragraph that we removed, we kind of put it back in. I faced 2 options. Latter option was resign to my circumstances, and the second one was to move forward, find a more challenging environment, which transitions neatly into her decisions why she wants to attend UT Austin. I visited the campus, sense of school spirit and energy. Again, every sentence here pushes the narrative forward. Each sentence, each clause has its space. It's elaborating on something new. When she needs to, she proves what she's talking about by citing specific examples, like the professors in the anthropology department, and even referencing their particular research. We put the paragraph about traveling back in and combined it with the interest in linguistic anthropology, and then tie it back into living in a bilingual home, but also self-studying French and eventually taking the AP exam, for example. So we'll start off as one really long essay. We've taken half of it, removed a lot of the sentences, some of the paragraphs, made it a lot more condensed. So we'll do a quick proofread. And this time we'll use Grammarly since we've already done a pretty good line-by-line edit. Purely academic. I never consider myself particularly school-spirited. I didn't feel the need to be connected to a larger community. I wanted to attend a Texas public university, but not as close as San Marcos and Austin, or even College Station or Houston. My development stalled. I've always aspired to something greater and more challenging and different. Courses were stagnant, easy go with the flow. Say even honors college, even my honors college classmates did not study for major exams or complete their assignments on time. Honors level courses prove remarkably easy and unchallenging. The university environment seems complacent and at times apathetic. It made me restless and uneasy. As time wore on, I concluded I wasn't finding the challenges I seek. I refused to settle into routines and coast along with strong yet hollow grades. I faced 2 options: find a more challenging, growth-oriented environment, or resign to my circumstances and focus on medical school. The latter option forces an undesirable resignation to a comfortable yet unfulfilling life of unrealized potential. Let's see. I can just say, it is clear to me it's clear that only the University of Texas offers the rigor and challenge that I need. We've already used seek once, so we'll say I need. This fall I visited the 40 acres and I immediately noticed a difference. Many students wore Port Orange. People seemed excited, confident. There seemed to be a school spirit that's absent at UNT. The University of Texas felt like a family, a cohesive yet fiercely individualistic unit. I could feel its infectious energy creeping up inside. I hadn't considered that a university experience could be both academically enriching and spiritually fulfilling. I prospect of attending, finishing my bachelor's degree at a university that inspires hard work, curiosity, and near limitless opportunities fills me with a sense of hope and wonder. Instantly, I became even more excited when I researched the anthropology department. Let's see, so we have just one professor she's referencing now, focusing on linguistic anthropology and her examination of newly Protestant communities in World Papua New Guinea relates to my interest in languages. When I was 9 years old, my parents took me on my first international trip. Exposure to different languages and cultures, however, wasn't entirely new. I live in a bilingual home. My father grew up in Madrid, learning both Spanish and English. He taught me Spanish. He wanted to share a vital part of his identity and childhood with me, and we communicate primarily in Spanish. Unsatisfied with speaking two languages as a kid, I self-studied French. By high school, I conversed with my teacher. These experiences informed my desire to balance the arts and sciences by studying in linguistic anthropology and eventually before attending medical school. So great, this is a transfer essay that really does everything required, has concrete reasons, expectations of what she thought she was getting into at UNT, how that may not have been the best decision, transitions into why UT is the place that she wants to attend, provides reasons that are very specific to her, identifies a few opportunities available at UT that may not be available elsewhere, and then talks about a few personal reasons why linguistic anthropology appeals to her. And then in SAE, she'll talk a lot more about her decision to become a physician.